What happens if nothing happens in your event-driven system? A payment confirmation that just never arrives, a settlement deadline that just passes, a compliance check that just times out. In event-driven systems, the absence of an event is just as bad as an error. My name is Nicholas, and today I'm going to show you how JobRunr Pro and the Axon framework can help you solve these issues. A little bit of context if you're not familiar with both tools. The Axon framework is a Java framework by Axon IQ. It's used a lot in event-sourced applications, and it gives you a lot of out-of-the-box functionality to really build that full audit trail. On the other hand, JobRunr Pro is a distributed Java background job scheduler, which, for example, gives you a dashboard so you can have full visibility inside your jobs. Before I can dive into the code, there are three key concepts that I need to explain. I'm sorry for the theory in this video, and that are sagas, event-sourced applications, and the deadline problem. First of all, event sourcing. Traditional systems, they only store the current state. For example, I now have 20 euros in my bank account. Event-sourced applications, they store all the events leading up to that final state. For example, a deposit, withdrawal, a transfer, and so on. Then all these events are replayed, so then you get that final state of the 20 euros that are on my bank account. Banks, they really love this because this gives them a full audit trail and gives them visibility in everything that happened along the way. Second, the Saga pattern. Really interesting pattern often used in microservices. Because if you do a big business transaction, it often contains a lot of microservices. And it's often not possible to wrap all those microservices into one big transaction. So that's when we use the Saga pattern. And in the Saga pattern, each step of the flow, it sends a comment and waits for an event back. And if something happens, like a timeout, for example, then each step knows how to do compensating actions to rewind what it already did. Basically, the Saga pattern is a workflow where it can really clean up its own mess and make sure that it goes back to the original state if it actually didn't succeed. And then finally, the deadline problem. In the Saga pattern, you're waiting to hear from an event back, but what if that event never arrives? It times out, the server crashes, whatever. Yeah, then you're just sitting there waiting for a transfer that is never going to happen. Part of your money is already locked up. We can't have that. So that's why Axon and the Axon framework, they have a deadline manager. What you do there is that you configure a timeout, the amount of time that you're willing to wait for a job to hear back from it. And then if that deadline passes, then the compensating actions are being fired. Axon, they have a default implementation that keeps everything in memory, and that's really fine when you're doing development, when you're testing and so on. But if you're in production, you want a system that could really handle restarts, that could make sure that all those other compensating actions, these jobs could be processed, distributed. So that's where JobRunr Pro comes in. It is a distributed background job scheduler, and on top of being able to be very good in that, it gives you a lot of visibility in all the jobs that are running, in the deadlines that you're still waiting for. And it has all of the other amazing JobRunr Pro features, of course. Enough theory for now. Let's dive into the code so I can show you how this actually works. We'll start with this bank account class. You see here we have actually two types of methods. We have the comment handlers where we will start with. The comment handlers, they really validate business rules and they apply events. They never write to a database, they just record that something has happened. And then we have our event handlers, like we see right here. And event handler methods, they rebuild state from those events. Every time Axon loads this aggregate, it replays all the events through these handlers. That's how you get to your current state. Let me have a look here at a specific one, this handle credit account comment, where we see there's a specific frozen part. When an account is frozen, the credit comment just does nothing. No event gets emitted. That's how we'll simulate a timeout. The Saga will be waiting for an account credit event that never will show up. Let's now have a look at the money transfer Saga. This is where it gets interesting. The Saga coordinates a money transfer in two specific steps. So first we have here on the transfer initiated event, what we see here is that it will first send a comment. So here the reserve funds comment, and then it will also immediately schedule a deadline. So if within 15 seconds in this case, it not get executed, then the deadline will be fired, the reserve funds deadline, and we will then reverse the things so that it cleans up after itself. We also have the second one here, the on funds reserved, What it first does is that it cancels the existing deadlines that were done by the previous step. Since it's not needed anymore, the funds are reserved, the event came in. And what it will then do is, again, send a new comment and then schedule a new deadline. Always the same kind of process. Then finally, on the final step, if everything was successful, the account was credited, what we will do here is cancel all the deadlines since the transfer was completed, so no deadlines will have to be executed. So now what happens when such a deadline is being executed? Well, you see it down here. This is actually the safety net. What you see here on the credit account timeout, for example, what we see here, the deadline fired, account credit timed out. So what we will do then is send a new comment, the release funds comment, because the person that first his account was credited, if it cannot go to someone else's account, then we need to release the funds and then the saga ends. So that's basically it. That is how it works. It's always the exact same pattern. You schedule a deadline, wait for an event, cancel the deadline when it works out, and every step has a really nice safety net. How to wire this up is actually super simple. So let's have a look at our pom.xml. We actually only need two specific dependencies. We here need our, of course, our Axon framework that we need to load, but what we specifically need is our Axon framework Spring Boot starter. We need our JobRunr Pro Spring Boot starter, and then we need our Axon JobRunner Spring Boot starter. All of this, if you load it, then Spring Boot and the auto wiring will take care of everything, and you will be able to use this out of the box. I think it's time for a little demo on how this works with JobRunr Pro and Axon. So I prepared here a little story that I'm gonna show you. I'm first going to restart my server here. Very simple, Maven Spring Boot run. So I have a little scenario here where I'm going to create an account for Alice and Bob, and I'm gonna send some money from one account to the other. Once everything is loaded here, then you can refresh your dashboard. You see, okay, dashboard is loading. At the moment, no jobs yet, but one server that's online. So everything is working great. Let me create Alice's account. Let me then create Bob's account. Let me then deposit 1,000 euros in Alice's account. All of that is done. And now Alice should have 1,000 and Bob should have no money. So what we're going to do now is we go do a transfer from 500 euros or $500 from Alice to Bob, and we're going to see all the deadlines that are being scheduled in our JobRunr Pro dashboard. So let's go. It's there. Then if you go to your jobs and you go to scheduled, then you will see the first deadline coming up there. The reserve funds deadline, it has in my code a 15 seconds deadline. So that means if within those 15 seconds the deadline is not cancelled, then the cleanup actions will happen. You see it was already removed. It went here to the deleted state. And then the credit account deadline, the next deadline was being put in my scheduled jobs. And you will see it was also deleted since everything went through, all the events went through, so then the cleanup job, the deadline jobs didn't have to happen. So both of them are deleted in here. You can see them in your JobRunr Pro dashboard. Nice thing with JobRunr Pro, in your dashboard you also have filters, so you can filter on specific job names or methods, or maybe even if you use labels for specific customers, you can also filter on that, and you can have a look in there and see everything that happened. So this is when there's a happy scenario, when everything goes well. Let's validate that actually everything went well. And yes, indeed, they now both have 500 euros. And what is nice with, of course, and the goal of this event source mechanism is that you can have an overview of all the events that happened. So you see here the account created events, the transfer initiated, funds reserved, account credited. So we have here a nice overview of all the events that happened and led to the transfer of the money. So now we go to the timeout scenario, when something happens that is not supposed to happen and the transfer cannot go through. So to do that, we're going to freeze Bob's account. So now we're going to try to transfer $200 from Alice to Bob, and you will see it's not going to be possible because Bob's account's frozen. So let's go. Send it. You will see here in the scheduled, the first one coming up, the reserve funds deadline. That is going to be successful because funds can be reserved. But then what will not be successful is here the created account deadline, because we cannot send it to Bob's account. So you'll see here 5 seconds from now, it will actually not go to the deleted state, but it will actually now it ended up here in the in queued state, and it is now in the succeeded state. So actually it did all the cleaning up things because it was needed. It was not possible to credit the account. So then JobRunr Pro was able to execute that since it was scheduled. So very nice and easy way to see this in your dashboard, see your succeeded, see your deleted here. And then, yeah, if we check here the accounts, Alice still has 500, Bob still has 500. And the beauty with this event-driven system is that we can again have a look at the events, and what we see here at the bottom, yeah, it was transfer initiated, funds released, and then funds reserved, and then here we have funds released again. So because it was not able to actually send those, send the funds to Bob's account, where we saw here the account credit event could not happen, so we have funds reserved and funds released. So this is actually a pretty cool example to show how all of this works. There were no stock funds, no manual intervention, no one had to wake up in the middle of the night. The deadline caught it and the Saga cleaned up after itself. What you get if you use the JobRunr Pro extension for the Deadline Manager are distributed deadlines that run across all your instances. You have fast cancellation because you have label-based lookup instead of having to scan your entire job store. And you have a dashboard where you can see every deadline filtered by name, status, or label. So, if you are building event-driven systems with Axon and the Saga pattern, check out our extension, links are in the description. And if you're on Quartz right now, we wrote a migration guide for that too. Thanks for watching. If this was helpful, like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll hope to see you in the next one. Ciao.